At 99 years old, Mel Brooks isn't hiding behind jokes anymore. The legendary comic genius behind Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein has finally spoken with brutal honesty about the 5 actors he could not stand working with. No filters, no diplomacy, just decades of memory, pride, and unhealed creative wounds spilling into the spotlight. When Brooks names names, Hollywood listens. Because he doesn't speak like other directors. He speaks like a man who built comedy like an architect, a man who understands rhythm, timing, and the fragile balance between genius and ego. These 5 actors weren't disliked because they lacked talent. In Brooks's universe, talent alone never guarantees entry. What mattered was trust, humility, and the ability to serve the story rather than dominate it. And for Brooks, these actors failed that test. Jerry Lewis, genius, but too big for Brooks's world. Jerry Lewis was a comic titan, a man who built slapstick into an empire. Brooks admired him, but not enough to share a set. Lewis's reputation for rewriting scenes mid-take, challenging directors, and overwhelming every room with his personality was well known. Brooks didn't need a partner who believed he was funnier than the film itself. The breaking point came during early work on Life Stinks, Brooks's sharp satire about a billionaire forced into homelessness. When the studio suggested Lewis for a major supporting role, Brooks shut it down instantly. He didn't want chaos disguised as comedy. Brooks once met Lewis at a neutral dinner arranged by a mutual acquaintance. Lewis arrived late, spoke non-stop, and barely acknowledged Brooks. No fight, no dramatic exit, just a quiet decision. They could never work together. In Brooks's mind, Lewis was too loud, too dominating, too unyielding to fit into his carefully constructed comedic universe. Gene Wilder, a broken brotherhood. Gene Wilder wasn't just an actor to Brooks, he was a creative twin. Together they changed comedy forever. Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein weren't just hits, they were seismic events. Wilder brought tenderness and vulnerability to Brooks's chaotic brilliance, creating an electric chemistry that became legendary. But after Young Frankenstein, the relationship began to fracture. Wilder wrote and wanted to direct the adventure of Sherlock Holmes's smarter brother, expecting Brooks to mentor him. Brooks declined, believing Wilder wasn't ready to direct. Wilder heard rejection. He made the film anyway, and the magic they once shared felt broken. Their bond didn't end with a fight or a public feud. It ended with silence. Brooks later described it like watching your brother pack his bags and leave. When they met again years later, the reunion was polite but distant. The loop that once made their work so perfect had snapped. Chevy Chase, too sharp to fit the ensemble. Chevy Chase was Hollywood's darling, sharp, quick, and effortlessly funny. On paper, he seemed perfect for Brooks's world. Studios pushed Brooks to cast him, but Brooks refused. The reason wasn't talent, it was attitude. Brooks believed comedy required generosity, the ability to hit a punchline and pass the rhythm to someone else. Chevy didn't blend, he eclipsed. Brooks heard the stories. Chase could freeze a room with a single smug remark or a raised eyebrow. He wasn't performing. He was waiting for everyone else to stop talking so he could remind them he was the smartest guy in the room. Brooks once said, "He's not collaborating, he's competing." The closest Chase came to a Brooks role was being considered for Spaceballs as Dark Helmet. Brooks chose Rick Moranis instead, praising Moranis' ability to step forward and step back. Chevy's star power couldn't outweigh the danger of his ego. Brooks knew that, in comedy, ego is poison. Harvey Korman, brilliance with a price. Harvey Korman was a genius, a master of improv, and a longtime star of The Carol Burnett Show. He thrived in chaos and loose, spontaneous comedy. The exact opposite of Brooks's world. Brooks was a precise director, a composer of timing, rhythm, and structure. On High Anxiety, Korman was cast as Dr. Montague, the sinister head of the Psychoneurotic Institute. But Korman began improvising, reshaping scenes, and pushing the role beyond its written boundaries. Brooks didn't object to creativity. He objected to disruption. "We already wrote the funny part," Brooks said. "We just need you to do it." The tension didn't explode in public, but it simmered behind the scenes. Korman stopped mingling, spent breaks alone, and the mood on set became a quiet war. On screen, Korman's performance was flawless. But Brooks remembered the cost. After that film, Korman's name vanished from Brooks's casting list. Not from hatred, but from exhaustion. Brooks realized that even brilliance can be too disruptive for a carefully constructed comedy. Frank Langella, too serious for slapstick. Frank Langella was a theatrical legend, a Dracula with regal darkness and magnetic presence. On paper, he was perfect for Dracula, dead and loving it. But Brooks didn't want gothic gravitas. He wanted velocity. He needed a Dracula who could be menacing and absurd in the same breath. Langella delivered gravitas, but he didn't deliver chaos. Rehearsals dragged. Langella spoke every line like a sermon. Brooks tried to steer him towards silliness, but Langella remained immovable. The moment of truth came during a test read. Brooks handed Langella a setup designed to collapse into slapstick. Langella paused and asked, "Do you want me to mock the text?" Brooks replied, "No, I want you to survive it." The truth was clear. Langella was performing in a different universe. Brooks ended the experiment quietly. No fight, no public humiliation, just a dignified exit. Then Leslie Nielsen stepped in, bringing the straight-faced lunacy Brooks needed. Langella's absence didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a mismatch. Brooks knew he couldn't force a tragedy actor into a comedy orchestra. The real reason, Brooks refused them. What ties these 5 actors together isn't their talent. It's their inability to join Brooks's world without demanding to reshape it. Brooks built comedy like an ensemble sport, not a solo performance. He valued timing, humility, and the willingness to serve the story. He didn't hate these actors. He simply knew they were incompatible with his method. Lewis was too dominating. Wilder became too independent. Chase was too self-centered. Corman was too disruptive. Langella was too serious. Brooks could tolerate chaos, but only if it belonged to the film, not to an ego. For Brooks, the set was a universe, not a spotlight. He didn't want actors who needed attention. He wanted actors who could disappear into the rhythm. When a star refused to be part of the team, Brooks refused them back. Brooks's legacy, a comedy built on control. Brooks's genius was not only in his jokes, it was in his discipline. He understood that comedy is fragile. A single misplaced moment can collapse an entire scene. He directed like a conductor, and every actor had to follow the rhythm. His films weren't accidents, they were carefully engineered chaos. That's why he could never tolerate certain types of performers. Some actors bring brilliance but also friction. Brooks learned early that friction destroys the joy of collaboration. He didn't need stars who could shine, he needed stars who could play together. That's what made his films legendary, the way every performer contributed to the structure without trying to dominate it. He built comedy like an architecture, not a personality. Outro, the 5 actors who could not enter Brooks's universe. Mel Brooks may be 99, but his mind is still sharp, and his opinions still cut through Hollywood like a blade. His list of actors he refused to work with isn't a list of enemies. It's a list of incompatibility. These actors were all brilliant, all powerful, all capable of shaping laughter. But they couldn't fit into Brooks's universe because they didn't share his essential rule. Comedy must be a shared language, not a personal stage. Brooks's legacy isn't just his films, it's the lesson he left behind. Talent alone isn't enough. In comedy, you must be willing to give up control, to trust the rhythm, and to become part of something larger than yourself. That is the secret of Brooks's genius, and the reason these 5 actors, despite their greatness, could never work with him.